Welcome back, true crime fans.
Smash that subscribe button like you're trying to break through concrete walls, because what you're about to hear is darker, colder, and more dangerous than you think. ADX Florence in Colorado has been called many things. The Alcatraz of the Rapi, the clean version of He, the place where men disappear. But deep inside this fortress lies something even more secretive. The HUnit prisoners call it the prison within the prison. To the Bureau of Prisons, it's just another wing. To everyone who's ever entered, it's a silent world where words themselves can be a crime. HUnit is where the government enforces special administrative measures, known simply as SAMs. To the uninitiated, that term sounds bureaucratic, almost dull. But in reality, SAMs are the sharpest blade in the government's arsenal, an order that can cut off the human being from the world more completely than any wall or razor wire ever could. The story begins with a man known only as Prisoner 900. He wasn't just another inmate. He was an international figure, a convicted terrorist whose communications were believed to be deadly weapons in themselves. Years earlier, messages smuggled out by his followers had led to bombings overseas. When he was transferred to ADX, the Attorney General signed off on SAMs, ensuring that not even his letters, his phone calls, or his whispers could leave his cell without government approval. Imagine this: a single concrete cell, dimensions no larger than a suburban bathroom, with a fixed steel door and an interior grill. Inside, a man sits on a steel bunk, staring at blank walls. His letters are written under supervision. His phone calls are listened to in real time, and every word he speaks to his lawyer is recorded for review. He cannot speak to other inmates. He cannot see the general yard. His television plays pre-approved programming, and even that is heavily censored. For the Bureau, HUnit is a firewall designed to stop words from killing. But for those inside, it is a psychological crucible. When investigative journalist Ava Brooks began digging into ADX in the late 2000s, she stumbled across sealed court documents. They revealed the names of a handful of men under SAMs, though most details were redacted. What struck her most wasn't just who was inside, but how little anyone knew about what life under SAMs looked like. It was as if the unit had been erased from public record, a ghost within the prison's own architecture. But then she found something chilling, a leaked memo describing how even attorneys defending SAM's prisoners were sometimes targeted for surveillance in and out. Ava's instincts told her this wasn't just about one or two men. It was about an entire system operating in shadows. Former ADX staff, speaking under anonymity, confirmed her fears. They described HUnit as a tomb for voices. Guards delivered meals in silence, eye contact was discouraged, and even the act of sliding a book through the door was logged as a potential security risk. One officer admitted he hated working there. It's like guarding ghosts. You forget what people sound like when they can't talk to anyone. The deeper Ava dug, the more questions arose. Were SAMs really about national security, or were they a tool to bury certain prisoners in silence forever? Did the system stop violence, or simply create a different kind of torture? And then came the shock. Buried in one lawsuit was a claim by an inmate's attorney that documents had been seized during legal visits, documents that allegedly contained classified information. The Bureau argued it was evidence of abuse of privilege. The defense countered that it was intimidation, a tactic to silence lawyers as well as clients. The allegations tore open a hidden world where justice itself seemed locked behind steel. If true, it meant SAMs weren't just about silencing terrorists. They were about silencing anyone who touched the system. And then came Ava's breaking point. Through a source. She received a photograph, grainy, blue-tinted, and clearly taken from a CCTV feed inside ADX. It showed a lawyer and an inmate seated across from each other in a sterile room, separated by glass. On the table, a folder marked classified. Within days, her source vanished. His phone went dead. His email bounced back. Ava realized this was more than just a story. She had stumbled into a place where worried alive. And when she tried to reach out to the Bureau for comment, she received a simple, cryptic reply. "You're asking about a corridor that doesn't exist." That was the moment she knew. The real story wasn't just about the men in HUnit. It was about the silence built around them. but she had no idea how deep that silence went. When Avi Brooks pressed send on her article draft, she thought she had won a small battle. It was nothing more than a summary, a piece questioning the secrecy of SAMs, their legality, their human toll. But within hours of hitting publish, her editor called her into his office. His face was pale, his voice strained. "Take it down," he whispered. Ava blinked. "What? Why?" "They're saying you included classified material. They're saying you shouldn't have had it." The photograph, the grainy CCTV still had crossed a line. Her editor had received the call, not from a press officer, but from a Department of Justice official who made it very clear. Further publication could result in criminal charges. For Ava, that wasn't the end. It was the beginning. She started calling lawyers, civil rights advocates, even former wardens. Every call confirmed what she feared. SAMs were a kind of legal purgatory. Once imposed, they could be renewed indefinitely, often in secret. A prisoner might finish his formal sentence and still remain under SAMs. Trapped, silenced, invisible. One former warden told her in hushed tones, "You want to know what HUnit really is? It's a black hole. Once you're inside, you don't come out." The tension deepened when Ava's apartment was broken into one night. Nothing of value was stolen. Her laptop was still there, her phone untouched. But the one thing missing was the folder of notes she had kept on her desk, the ones with handwritten names of sources. She knew what it meant, a warning. At the same time, something strange happened inside ADX itself. Guards whispered about a prisoner in HUnit who had stopped eating. His hunger strike lasted weeks, and though officially nothing was said, rumors leaked out. In a letter smuggled from an attorney's files, the prisoner wrote, "They can silence my voice, but they can't silence my body. If my body breaks, it will speak louder than my words." The Bureau responded the way it always did. Silence. No press release, no acknowledgement. But Ava began to see a pattern. Each time an inmate resisted, even quietly, the government tightened the rules. 1 letter per week became 1 letter per amende. 1 15-minute phone call per amende became none at all. And then came the story that shook her most. A defense lawyer under anonymity confessed that even conversations with clients were monitored. "We're supposed to have attorney-client privilege," he said. "But in HUnit, there's no such thing. Every word is recorded. You can feel it in the room. The microphones, the cameras. It's like trying to whisper in a hurricane." The danger wasn't just legal. Eva soon discovered one of her key sources inside the Bureau had been quietly reassigned, transferred to a distant facility in another state. No explanation, no farewell. Simply gone. The more she pulled at the threads, the clearer the picture became. HUnit wasn't just a prison block, a place to test the boundaries of silence, to see how far the government could go before breaking not just bodies, but identities themselves. And then, late one night, Ava received a flash drive slid under her door. No note, no fingerprints, just a single drive containing a set of documents marked "Top Secret." She plugged it into her laptop with shaking hands. Inside was a memo stamped with the seal of the Bureau of Prisons. It was dated just 6 months earlier. The subject line read, "Renewal of SAMs, Subject 900, HUnit, ADX Florence." But the chilling part wasn't the renewal. It was the last line of the memo, "SAMs remain necessary until subject's death." Ava sat frozen, staring at the words. It wasn't about national security anymore. It wasn't about justice. It was about permanence. The unit wasn't just designed to silence. It was designed to erase. Her phone buzzed on the table. "An unknown number," she answered, her heart racing. A deep voice, calm, deliberate. "You've seen too much now." And then the line went dead. The morning after the anonymous call, Ava Brooks stood at her window staring at the snow-capped Rockies in the distance. Somewhere out there, buried in the high desert outside, Florence, Colorado, was HUnit, the prison. And now she knew something that could end her career, maybe even her freedom. Sam's were temporary measures. They were life sentences, written in invisible Ingeva, met her last remaining source in a diner on the outskirts of Denver. A retired bureau psychologist. Hands trembling as he stirred his coffee, slid a folder across the table. Read it, but when you're done, burn it. Inside were transcripts of therapy sessions, all stamped confidential. Inmate 900, the man whose Sam's would last until death. The words were haunting. I talk to myself so I don't forget the sound of my voice. I dream about crowds, not faces, just noise. Silence is the real punishment. Silence makes you disappear while you're still alive. The psychologist lowered his voice. That man hadn't touched another human being in nearly 20 years. Do you understand? His heart is still beating. But in every way that matters, he's already gone. Ava felt the weight of the files pressing into her hands. She had her proof, but proof had never been enough. The next step was riskier than anything she had ever done. She drove to Florence and parked just beyond the perimeter fence, where the tower's landscape. From there, she could see the faint outline of the HUnit, a sealed box within the Supermax, its windows like blind eyes. A guard SUV slowed as it passed her, headlights sweeping across her windshield. She kept her head down until it moved on. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. That night, she drafted her story. She laid out everything: the transcripts, the memo, the hunger strike, the surveillance of lawyers, the chilling phrase, until subject's death. She framed it not as an expose of one man, but as a warning. If a government could bury one prisoner alive in silence, what stopped it from doing so to others? Before she had published, she hesitated. The fear was real, not just for her job, but for her safety. She remembered the missing notes from her apartment, the voice on the phone. This wasn't a game anymore. Still, she pressed enter. The article went live at midnight. By dawn, it had gone viral. Civil rights groups shared it, senators demanded hearings, and international outlets picked up the story. The phrase "the prison within the prison" trended worldwide. But the victory was short-lived. 2 days later, federal agents raided her apartment. They seized her laptop, her notes, even the flash drive. She was summoned to testify before a grand jury, accused of possessing classified material. Her words were out. The world now knew what HUnit really was. Not just a block for dangerous men, but a place where silence itself had been weaponized. The story ended not with a courtroom verdict or a press release, but with a whisper. Guards at ADX said that late at night, walking past the sealed doors of HUnit, they sometimes heard it. A soft, steady voice repeating the same words over and over. I am still here. Av's career was over, but her story lived on. Proof that even the deepest silence can be broken if someone dares to listen.